Jesus.
Oh my God.
In many ways, we've gotten so used to the idea of having human beings behind the wheel of trucks, vans and cars, of being stuck in traffic and an almost complete lack of parking anywhere near your destination, at least here in the southeast of England, that it's almost blasphemy to imagine it any other way. But it's coming. The debate over whether it's possible or not is done. The technology is here, and it's making its crude baby steps already.
Oh yeah. Oh yes. Nice.
How much autonomous driving we allow and how fast it happens ought to be up for more public debate, I think. I'm not a car nut, but I do love this car. Driving is a lot of fun. Why would we ever stop wanting to drive cars, trucks and buses? That definitely doesn't mean it shouldn't happen. Because it can also be really boring and dangerous and a massive waste of our time. But it's one thing to use a more advanced cruise control on the highway and another to put an end to the livelihood of most taxi and truck drivers. Just because you can't conceive of it happening quickly doesn't mean it won't. In this video, I'll do my best to cover the basics of where self-driving technology is now and why it's urgent to start talking about its implications, but so that you understand what is meant by self or autonomous driving, here's the agreed levels. It goes from 0 to 5, and Level 0 autonomy is where there is nothing automated and the driver has to control every aspect of driving, all the way to Level 5 autonomy where there isn't a driver needed at all. Most cars on the road today have some features that put them either at Level 1 or 2 to give you an idea of where the technology is currently at. So I've made it sound like it's inevitable and obvious, and it does have a lot of momentum behind it, but why even talk about the rights and wrongs of it now? There's still a lot of regulatory approval and public perception of safety to get past before it enters common use, right? Well, firstly, it's too late to talk about it once everybody's using it. And then it's not a binary on or off thing, really. Like any big changes, you're not going to open your door one day and suddenly find all transporters turn self-driving overnight. But extending from today's already accepted cruise control functions, we are more likely to see added features that rapidly accumulate acceptance alongside regulatory approval. For example, use of self-driving technology to take over and safely bring a car to an emergency stop in a lay-by whenever it detects a sleeping driver would save hundreds of lives each year in places like Australia, where the long, straight roads are the norm. Mandating the technology to improve safety will set precedents that are then hard to walk back. I remember how fast the use of mobile phones went from being exotic-looking bricks in movies like Wall Street, when they were the preserve of the privileged handful, to the common as mud Nokia banana phone that appeared in The Matrix a decade later. Mobile connectedness had gone from virtually zero use to half the population in a decade, pulling the public, that was reluctant at first, along with it. And adoption of new technology and manufacturing techniques are a lot faster than that today. That Nokia still looks cool though. Exactly why autonomous driving is possible now is a longer story, but it's fair to say that this isn't the first time there's been self-driving hype. The concept of a car that drives itself is almost as old as the internal combustion engine, with all sorts of guidance systems and rails considered in the last century. Even Da Vinci dreamed of a self-propelled car. But over the last decade, a number of technologies have converged to make it a reality in some limited situations already. In order to explore how it's likely to come into use safely, I'll be looking at two very different but highly advanced platforms, Tesla and Waymo. Although there's loads of others, Ford, GM, spin-off Cruise, VW and Baidu to name a few, it's these two that most clearly show the different approaches being used. Between them, these technologies could potentially cover all driving situations over the next few years. Looking at this leaderboard from Navigant Research, you'll see Tesla is seen as an outlier, but as far as I can tell, that's because they aim to solve a much more difficult problem with different technology. The measurements for success in this field are not ones that favour them, but I'll go into that soon. Let's start with Waymo. A Google spin-off, Waymo inherits all the mapping and user interface advantages that make Google Maps intuitive, so it has pedigree. That is, for a lot of people, the leader in the race to develop a system of highly detailed street mapping combined with vehicle guidance systems. The basic idea is that if the maps are detailed enough and the vehicle knows clearly enough where it is, then all the computing power can go into recognising and responding to traffic, people and street signals all the way to the destination. At the moment, the extensive testing of this system is happening in flat, predictable built-up areas like Phoenix, Arizona, and requires a backup driver. But if you live there, you can hail a driverless taxi, and by all accounts, it will flawlessly drive you to your destination without much, if any, help from the backup driver. It's kind of like making an elaborate rail set for cars, and relies on the continuous updating of those maps, which comes from Waymo's connected fleet of computers on wheels. So if one car registers a change in the map, like say roadworks or a new traffic light, the map is updated and the rest of the fleet is notified. The only problem is being the first vehicle in that new situation. But hey, sometimes you got to take one for the team, right? Waymo is using a depth sensing technology called LiDAR alongside machine learning rather than just cameras and machine learning. The other place that LiDAR has been used is in the next generation of drones that can follow a target seamlessly around any obstacles, even in a forest, and it's really clever stuff. But depth sensing isn't the same as knowing what you're seeing. A camera connected to a computer that has been taught to recognize people, signs, and obstacles can start to understand more intelligently what is going on. For instance, LiDAR might be able to tell how far away an obstacle is with greater detail, but it's more difficult for the vehicle to know if that obstacle is a plastic bag or a block of concrete. Now, Waymo represents a technology that may well be adequate, or even preferable, for predictable, mappable, high-density use in downtown autonomous taxis, and it may arrive quickly as an alternative novelty service. But for the vast, unpredictable world that exists everywhere else, I can't see it working yet, because driving isn't just about obstacle avoidance or following rules, it's about reacting to the unexpected, or as engineers call them, edge cases and corner cases. In short, the one-off random things that seem to just happen when you least expect it. Waymo is scaling their operation now to get more real-world miles rather than the largely simulated miles its computers have been driving in the past. It's the real-world miles where the computers get to learn about driving conditions that progress is being made. But crucially, Waymo doesn't make cars. And that brings me to Tesla, who've decided to go in a different direction. Their solution relies on cameras and machine learning and lots of real-world data. Did I say lots? I meant thousands of years of accumulated data. Together, the Tesla fleet has hundreds of thousands of cars on the road with cameras and computers that feed back to a central mothership. Apparently, it is called the mothership. And that adds up to the equivalent of tens of thousands of years in accumulated driving data every 12 months. Waymo, in contrast, has accumulated around only 1,000 real-world years in its entire lifetime. And Tesla is so confident, some might say crazy, that it is letting some of its Tesla owners use the full self-driving beta version that it rolled out late last year. On the surface, it looks like an incredible risk, and you could argue that pedestrians and other road users haven't consented to that risk. But the US is a pioneering culture. They've done it. They're doing it. It's done. From what I've seen though, Google FSD beta videos if you're interested. The people Tesla have chosen are sensible enthusiasts who understand they've been entrusted with a beta version. And so far, it's been remarkable to watch. I do hope there isn't some idiot who ruins it for everyone, but anyway, these cars cannot drive themselves all the time without supervision and fairly regular intervention, but they're not expected to yet. What critics are missing, and there's plenty of critics, is what they can do, and that is drive a lot of the time in completely unfamiliar territory while the driver watches, all the time sending data back to the mothership whenever the driver does intervene. You have to understand, whenever these drivers intervene, the faster Tesla will learn to solve all those corner cases to the point where driver interventions will become less and less, which is already happening. At some point, interventions will become almost non-existent. You can see where this is going. So yes, Tesla is behind if you measure interventions, but if you see the interventions as part of solving the hard problem of self-driving using machine learning in real miles, then Tesla is so far ahead, it's not funny. At any rate, it's not about whether Waymo or Tesla or anyone else succeeds first. The world is big enough for a number of systems, and it's quite plausible that a LiDAR system is great for autonomous taxis in high-density city centers that can be realistically mapped to a high level of precision, and also for the predictable rules of highways for use in trucking. Camera-only solutions like Tesla's could do everything in between for private use or courier vans. Whichever technology dominates is not really the question I care about, though. I'm more interested in how the technology gets rolled out, who it serves, and what happens if large numbers of people are simply put out of work all at the same time because the transport and logistics sector employs a big chunk of the economy.
I'm providing the world with whatever I got on the back of my freight. I deliver your clothes, your food that you're eating. A lot of people don't see that. And it's a good feeling as a driver, as a human being. When you ask me what would I do if I didn't drive, I can't honestly answer that because I really don't know what I would do.
As autonomous driving moves from being speculative popular science to reality, some of the answers need to come from all of us as a society, because at its simplest, most practical level, roads, parking, street signage, dedicated traffic lanes, and perhaps networking infrastructure will need to be changed over time, which involves a not insignificant amount of public money. That's what I'll be covering in the next video, so watch that over here. If there's nothing there yet, it's because I haven't finished it. But make sure you're subscribed and hit that bell thingy so you get a notification whenever a new video arrives. Thanks for watching, and remember, the future is the only place we're all heading at the same time. Might as well make it good.